Playing retro consoles on a modern television can be a very tricky thing. These consoles were not designed with HD televisions in mind, they were designed with CRT TVs in mind. So it can be very tricky to get a decent image quality out of your retro consoles. Of course, there are companies that have been coming along and making plug-and-play solutions to alleviate this. Last year, Eon burst onto the gaming scene with the GC HD, a plug-and-play device to play your GameCube on your HD television. And honestly, the results were pretty staggering. Playing progressive scan games on your GameCube via your HD television with this device was very simple, and the games looked absolutely beautiful. I was blown away by this product when we reviewed it last year on the channel. Now Eon has set their sights on the N64, which is definitely a problematic system when it comes to playing on the HD TVs that you probably own nowadays. Of course, you could do things like the Ultra HDMI mod, but unless you know how to solder and do the mod yourself, it's going to cost you about $400 in order to get this. And I'm sorry, but the N64 is not worth $400 to me to play on an HD television. Well, Eon has now introduced the Super 64, a plug-and-play solution for your N64 to play on your HD television. It has a retail price of $150, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at today on the channel. We're going to be taking a look at what this thing does, how it performs, and if it is indeed worth the $150 price point. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into the world of the Super 64 from Eon.
RGT85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards! Alright, so here we have the Super 64 from Eon. As you can see, this is the plug-and-play solution to play your N64 on an HD television. Turning around to the back of the unit here, you see we have some information. Play any N64 game on your HD TV. Virtually eliminates all input lag. Compatible with any HDMI-enabled display. Outputs the highest quality signal over HDMI. No additional modding required. Basically tells you how easy setup is, all that sort of stuff. Open up the box. Very, very simple device. As you can see here, here is the unit. You simply plug it into the back of your N64. You put your HDMI cable in there, and there's a button on the side for smoothing, which we will take a look at in some of the comparison footage. But yeah, it is simply a plug-and-play device. It is advertised as such, and that is all it is. So we're gonna put it into the N64, and you guys can get a look at how it lights up. And putting it into the system is easy peasy. You simply just slide it in the slot there, get a nice little click, turn it on, and you can see that the light on the top will turn orange, meaning that it has power and that it is ready to go. Now, if you want to use the smoothing option, you simply press the button on the side there, and then this button will also light up blue, letting you know that you are using the smoothing option. But yeah, like they say, it is plug and play. It is very simple, much like the GC HD adapter from Eon. It's very simple to get this up and running. Now, of course, we have to actually look at what this will do and how this plays the games on your HD television. So let's go ahead and get into some basic information on how we're going to compare some footage, and then we'll jump right into it. Something I feel is going to be very important in this video are comparisons, because when the Eon Super 64 was announced, a lot of people realized that this was essentially pulling S-Video from the N64 and allowing it to play on your HD television. But there's already a product out on the market that does that, the RetroTink. We actually looked at the RetroTink before on the channel, but the RetroTink essentially allows you to use a composite signal, an S-Video signal, or a component signal, and then play it on your HD television. So would there be any sort of substantial difference between the RetroTink and the Eon Super 64 adapter? That was something I was definitely very curious to take a look at. And of course, there are cables that are on the market that are sort of making waves in terms of what they do. The M cable is something I've heard a lot about. It's an HD cable, but unlike other HD cables, it actually has technology inside of it that supposedly makes your video games look better. The results are kind of mixed, but some people swear by these M cables. Now, the M cable is a pricey investment at $100, but I thought it would be worth checking out comparatively to the Eon adapter to see if it would improve the video quality and the video signal over something like S-Video. So this is something that we're going to be taking a look at as well in the video. But let's just get into the footage and see what sort of differences we can find. Alright, so starting things off, we're going to go with good old Composite, the good old red, white, and yellow, because you have to work your way up to this. You have to see the differences between things like Composite, S-Video, and the Eon adapter. So just some very brief Composite footage here. This is Composite being ran through the RetroTink, and you can see Composite just sort of sucks. I mean, this is pretty much what we played N64 on back in the day, and you can see the textures are sort of blurry. You know, there's a lot of jaggies going on. The colors are a bit muted. The text itself isn't very clean or crisp. But yeah, so let's work our way up and let's take a look at S-Video with the Retro Tink. And you can see there's definitely an upgrade in quality. You also have better audio as well with the S-Video, and of course you have better colors, you have better textures. The text itself is a bit cleaner and crisper, but what I really wanted to see was how the S-Video is comparative to the Eon adapter, because obviously the Eon adapter is pulling from the S-Video signal, so would there be any sort of differences between them? And taking a quick glance at the Eon adapter, you know, it's definitely tough to see any sort of real differences between the S-Video, if there are any. I will say the audio is definitely a bit better on the Eon adapter than it is versus in just standard S-Video. But as far as graphical differences are concerned, it's definitely sort of tough to see any sort of things worth noting. Maybe the colors are a little bit better, maybe the textures are a little bit better, but it's definitely hard to see with the naked eye if there's any major differences. Now we're going to take a look at the Eon adapter plus smoothing, and quickly I was able to see a major difference in the text. If you look at the upper corners of the screen there, like the number 4, the number of stars, 120 stars, is definitely a lot cleaner than it was without the smoothing on. As far as other differences are concerned, you know, everything has a bit of a smoother feel to it. There's not quite as many jaggy textures. It really just comes down to preference though, if you like that style over a standard style. So let's take a look at the Eon adapter versus S-Video side by side. Once again, kind of hard to see any major differences. Maybe the colors are a tad bit crisper on the Eon adapter versus S-Video, but other than that, I don't really see any major differences worth noting or worth talking about. Both feel very clean, you know, there's no lag whatsoever, they feel very nice, but as far as, you know, visual differences are concerned, there's definitely not much going on in terms of visual differences. But next up, we're going to look at the Eon adapter versus the Eon adapter plus smoothing, and you will pretty much see my point about things like the text, because I think the text, you know, you can see right there, it looks much better with the smoothing on as opposed to the smoothing off. As far as the actual game is concerned, I don't know, maybe the smoothing does look a touch better, but it really just comes down to your preference. Some people like, you know, a crisper looking texture versus the smoothing filter that sort of makes it maybe a tad bit blurry to the naked eye, but I think the smoothing does look fine in this game, and I think it looks pretty good. Next up, it was the biggest surprise to me though, is the Eon adapter with an M cable. I don't really know how an M cable works. I know that there's some sort of innards that make things work better, but I think this looks absolutely fantastic. The colors are richer than we see with just the standard Eon adapter and even the S-Video. I think this looks very, very nice, and the polygons are nice and crisp. You're definitely getting a better image quality. When you look at this standard Eon adapter with just a standard HDMI versus the Eon adapter with an M cable, I mean, you could see a difference. Like, it's very noticeable in terms of how clean and crisp everything is with the M cable. So if you have an M cable, the Eon adapter is definitely something you need to have your eye on. Let's take a quick look here at some still images. We have S-Video first and foremost. Next up, we have the Eon adapter. Like I said, not a major difference between S-Video and Eon, but once you introduce the M cable to the Eon adapter, I think things change very, very quickly. Now we're going to take a look at one of my favorite games of all time, WCW NWO Revenge. This is running on the Eon adapter with no smoothing, and I think it looks pretty good. You know, the colors seem to look very nice, the textures themselves are pretty clean and crisp, and we get to see Booker T finally get his revenge on Hulk Hogan. You remember that infamous promo? He said he was coming for Hulk Hogan next after he takes the gold, and he never got his chance. So we're giving Booker T his chance to get one up on Hulk Hogan. Now let's take a look at the Eon adapter with the M cable, and I think things actually look a bit better once again. The M cable really surprised me with just how good it takes standard N64 games on this Eon adapter and sort of gives them an additional shine. You know, the colors, like I said, they look crisper. The polygons themselves look sharper, and we're going to have some side-by-side footage here in just a moment where you can see sort of the differences going on. It's not quite as noticeable as Super Mario 64 was to me, but I do think it is worth mentioning as far as looking at things side by side. Get him, Booker, get him! And you can see here on the left-hand side, we have the Eon adapter. On the right-hand side, we have the Eon adapter plus the M cable. And I definitely think there's a difference. You can tell things like the lighting in the background on the Nitro set looks better with the M cable. It doesn't have like that little haze to it like it does on the standard Eon adapter. And finally, let's take a look at an expansion pack game, Resident Evil 2, one of my favorite games on the N64. We are comparing S-Video to the Eon adapter. And I know what you're saying to yourself, well, are you going to show a expansion pack game with the M cable? But therein lies a problem, folks. For whatever reason, whenever the N64 recognizes that you have an expansion pack in on an expansion pack game, the resolution changes very quickly to utilize the expansion pack. The M cable is not able to read that quick change, so you cannot use your M cable on expansion pack enabled games, which is very, very disappointing to me. Taking a look at the S-Video versus the Eon adapter, you know, it's pretty similar. I am very hard pressed to see any sort of major difference in this game as far as visual quality is concerned. Any sort of differences in color, polygons, textures, there's really not a whole lot going on in terms of differences in visual fidelity. So this was a look at all of the different ways I was able to play my N64, of course looking specifically at the Eon adapter. So let's go ahead and wrap this up, and I'll give you guys my final thoughts on how I feel about the Eon adapter. So is the Eon adapter worth the $150 price point? I think it sort of depends on what you want. If you want a simple plug and play solution for your N64, you don't want to worry about additional power supplies or additional wires and stuff like that, I think it gets the job done. There's definitely better video quality over standard composite video, and it's very simple to use. And I also like the smoothing feature on here as well. It's a decent little device. Now, if you're someone who has a multitude of systems that does composite, S-Video, and component, you might be better off getting a RetroTink. The differences between these two are pretty negligible in my opinion, unless you introduce the M cable. The M cable is $100 extra, but at $250, I think standard N64 games look absolutely amazing on my HD television. But there is a bit of a caveat with that. The M cable is very finicky. Sometimes when I was recording footage, the M cable wouldn't want to work at all. Some devices and some televisions, it would do a full screen image of 16:9. Some of them it would do a 4:3. So there's a lot of little caveats and a lot of asterisks that go alongside of the M cable. But if you have a television that will allow you to do standard 4:3, I think the Eon adapter and the M cable is definitely something you should check out, because I think the image quality on it is absolutely fantastic. And at $250, it is less than what you would get with the Ultra HDMI. But all in all, it's a decent device. The jump isn't anything crazy like we saw with the GameCube, and I feel like some people may be disappointed with that. I still think the RetroTink is a better overall buy than this adapter, but this adapter is pretty decent for what it does. So let me know in the comments section down below if you are interested in the Eon adapter. Let me know what you thought of all the footage that we compared and contrasted, what footage you thought looked the best. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel. Huge thank you to Ryan from Castlemania Games for sending this over to review. I'll have a link to Ryan's website in the description box down below. Make sure you guys go check him out. He's the king of retro stuff right now. He's got everything in stock, and he's definitely the guy you want to go to. And as always, guys, I will catch you guys on the next video. Later.